A few more coming in. On behalf of California State Parks, welcome to Hearst San Simeon State Historical Monument. Lovely to see you all. We are here on this beautiful Friday morning, getting to do something that I don't get to do every day. So I am excited to get to share this with you, and I'm excited to be doing this because today we're going to be getting a little bit of a behind the scenes look at what it takes to run Hearst Castle, a historic home, a state park, an art museum, and we get to see the people who have all kinds of fantastic skills to make all of this happen, to make a lot of beautiful things happen around here so that you, yes, you, can come here and enjoy what your California State Parks have for you. I'm going to do a quick introduction here. Start out with, my name is Dan King, and I am a guide here at Hearst San Simeon State Historical Monument. Behind me, we've got Tyler and Jenny. Yeah, sorry. See, we see each other around work, but we don't properly talk. So this is also exciting that I get have an actual sit-down conversation with my coworkers. And you're seeing three sections of the Hearst Castle staff represented here. Tour guides here, Tyler representing grounds, yep. Jenny representing collections and conservation. People who are making a lot of things happen so that you get to see when you come here to the castle and as we come around, all of the art collections, the historic buildings, the gardens, which are historically accurate as much as we can make them to how things were in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. When William Randolph Hearst was creating his dream home here at San Simeon, California, on what he liked to call La Cuesta Encantada, the Enchanted Hill. For a moment, I am going to bounce the picture around here and give you folks a view of part of why we're up here, because you're seeing a view down to San Simeon Bay down there. And since I don't think I get to walk us around the castle as much today, you get to see a little bit of those California hillsides, some of the terraces, bit of the house. We'll get back to that in a minute when I spin the camera around, all the way down to some of the statuary, the sculpted lampposts even, and some of the terraces of the Casa del Mar, the House of the Sea, named because it's got that sea view. I'm going to take a moment to pop up a map so that folks can see where we are. Oops. Sorry, just got to find that map. Okay, we'll use that one. All right, so here is all of California, and I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, and I'm going to grab my pencil, and I am going to point out that where we are coming to you from near San Luis Obispo. We're in San Luis Obispo County, and we are out on the coast. We'll change color there for that. Did that work? Hey, pencil. And basically, we're just a little bit north of San Luis Obispo, out on the California coastline, about halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. And you get to get beautiful views of the ocean, of the Santa Lucia to the mountains to the north of us, and all of this glorious, beautiful coastal landscape. That was why William Randolph Hearst, famous newspaper publisher, decided in 1919 that he wanted to build the home of his dreams right here. Hey, cool! I've got more of my team arriving. Fantastic. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to spin it around so we get to see us again. And do me a favor here. Remind me of your name.
I'm Travis. I'm the electrician on the hilltop.
Fantastic. Okay, so Travis is representing part of our maintenance team. And we are here today to talk with these three teams, these representatives of these three teams who are doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, making all of this magic happen up on this enchanted hill. Because in particular, we want to look at how their work reflects the 100-year history of this house and how we're looking into the next century or two, thinking particularly today about climate change. All right, Tyler, since you are the one who deals with growing things, let me pull you a little bit closer on up to the camera here. All right. So, in a nutshell, tell me about what your department does, how your team makes all the wonderful things happen here at the castle.
Yeah, absolutely. So the gardens here are part of the museum. It's their historic gardens, and we maintain the gardens as well as the long approach road coming up from the visitor center. And like you said, we do our best to keep it historic to how it was when Mr. Hearst was still here. And to do that, you got to work with all the different departments: maintenance, collections, the guides, the historian, and we're constantly pruning plants away from marble. Sometimes when we do large scale pruning projects, we got to work with guides to reroute tours. We work with maintenance and collections to box statues. So it truly takes a village to run this place. And every morning we're out here cleaning the terraces, blowing off the walkways, deadheading all the roses, and beautifying the different garden beds. That way we can give the visitors the best experience possible.
Fantastic, fantastic. And for the benefit of our viewers, I didn't arrange us the most amazing camera angle for this, but what Tyler's team has been doing here has been creating around us a virtual explosion of roses. Everyone, visitors and folks coming and working here alike, keeps walking around here saying the smell of the roses just washes over you everywhere you go around here these days. And everywhere you look, you are surrounded by beautiful blooms.
Well, we're like the lighting and the sound guys backstage. The guides are the true performers for sure.
Well, you make us look really good. You make us look really, really good. I wouldn't have things to tell people about if you didn't set that beautiful scenery for us.
Thanks.
Yeah, so now put this in that 100-year context. What is similar to how things would have been way back when Mr. Hearst was around here? What is different? What are the practices that you've had this long tradition on? Are there plantings that you can particularly say, yeah, that is something that Mr. Hearst would have seen that plant?
Yep. Well, I mean, the roses are the best example of that. They're all the historic varieties. And so when you look around the gardens, it's supposed to look like how it was when he was last here. But some things have changed. We are allowed some freedom of interpretation when it comes to the overall health of the gardens. Like the best example is a lot of these garden beds that you would see out here used to have bare soil, which is not good because when bare soil is exposed to the elements, it actually like releases carbon out of the ground and into the atmosphere. So now we make our own compost. All our compost piles are down over there. And we use that. We use mulch to keep our water retention and carbon retention in the soil. And it also helps with carbon sequestration. And so that's one of the major changes. And then we've also converted to drip irrigation from sprayers. Mm-hmm. And when you use sprayers, you get a lot of evapotranspiration, which is when water is exposed to the elements. A lot of it will just evaporate instantly, or wind can blow it onto terraces and not actually go into the ground. So we use drip irrigation with check valves, so it doesn't siphon in dirt and it can be buried under mulch and allows you to water more deeply and infrequently and maximize that resource. And then another big change is we're just converting over to smart controllers. Mm-hmm. And so those can use local weather data to automatically adjust to that ET, evapotranspiration, and adjust how much it's watering based on the local weather. And they also run cycle and soak programs, which allows you to water even more deeply because it'll water a little bit, shut off, and then water again and push water deeper down into the soil. And it just makes your system even more efficient.
This sounds like these are practices that home gardeners can and should maybe be using out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think we all want to conserve water, because out here in California, it's
all
a precious
about maximizing
resource.
That resource.
Yeah. And I think everybody wants to take care of their water bill. Here, it's not about the water bill. It's our water supply, because we're on that fixed set water supply from the springs up the hill behind the house.
Yep.
Fantastic.
One of the other big changes I just want to mention is switching over from gas-powered landscaping equipment to battery equipment.
That's
just
huge.
to lower your emissions. Yeah, we now have battery-powered blowers, weed whackers, hedgers, and even chainsaws.
You know, in the background, I'm going to guess it's not coming through the audio for our folks over there.
Yeah, that's a battery hedger I'm hearing.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, considering that we've got a couple hundred tourists coming around seeing the place right now, the difference between that nice, quiet battery-powered hedger and the gas hedger, that's a win for all of us, and a win for the climate here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. Big stuff.
It's a win-win.
Yeah. Okay, Jenny, can I pull you up?
Is there a third question?
Let's see here.
Or was that all included in
Let's
Got
see.
another one for me?
Did we get in? We kind of talked about recent changes and recent practices.
I got other changes to talk about.
Ooh. Okay. This is the great thing. You know, I programmed us for 45 minutes. Yeah, go, man. Tell us more.
Well, as you can tell, we're pretty passionate about climate change on the grounds department and up here at the castle. So our planet's topsoil is the largest reservoir for carbon that we have. So it's all about getting that carbon out of the atmosphere, into the ground. And the best way is to use compost, mulch, and let ground cover crops come up. And that increases your soil sequestration, which is pulling it out of the atmosphere and into the ground. That's why plants are like climate change superheroes. And so one of the big changes is like along the approach road, in between the oleanders and citrus trees, it used to be common practice to spray herbicides to keep it nice and clean and formal. So we've stopped spraying herbicides. We're letting those annual grasses come up so it can sequester that carbon from the atmosphere. And then we weed whack them once they dry out. That's a big one. And then we've stopped using as many chemical fertilizers in our gardens. We still do, but a lot less. We definitely have hopes of implementing a compost heap program, which will even further our carbon sequestration.
Lock it up in the soil.
Yeah,
Like it.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And we're super enthusiastic about using plants to do that. And it's kind of nice to see that idea of carbon sequestration like become more and more popular.
Yeah. Since now, I know from some conversations with my fellow guides that there is a lot of history that you folks become experts on of all the ways that William Randolph Hearst would think about particular styles of gardening and particular looks that he wants. In some ways, it sounds like you're allowing a little bit of a wilder look than he would have gone for, but yet, you're saying yes, but no, we can still get the manicured look he was going for, but with better methods than they had in the 1920s.
That's where mulch like really comes in handy, because you can still have that very clean, formal look, and it's still helping with that carbon retention and sequestration, and using compost as a means to amplify that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And again, I think that what you're talking about here is things that home gardeners can all be taking a look at and saying, if it works in this beautiful setting, it can be working for people's home gardens too.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are easy ways to help out.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Travis. Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like you might have some follow-up that works in with that.
I do. I have lots to talk about when it comes to the castle and what we're doing, what Tyler's doing, and what historic restorations are doing. I've actually only been up on the hill for a couple of months. I am the electrician up here, so I'm in charge of taking care of the electrical infrastructure and bulbs and things of that nature. So that's what we do up here. We try to keep this place running. You can't run a tour, you can't turn on lights without electricity. And so we live in a wonderful age of technology, and so we try to keep that going.
Yeah. Now I might stop me if I'm jumping in on things that are your area, but I'm recalling a time last year when I was getting a presentation from Toby, also from collections, talking about the lighting of our assembly room. The big major living room, one of the spots that is a real prime spot for our tours. Back in Mr. Hearst's day, they lit that room with 300 filament light bulbs.
Incandescents.
Incandescents. Thank you. That's the word I was hunting for. Yeah. And those consumed a huge amount of energy. Now, for those who haven't been here, who haven't seen that assembly room, those light bulbs back in the 20s and still today, you see them in clusters up at the top of the ceiling. That was the decorative fixture that they created in those days. And Julia Morgan, the architect of this place, had some real skill for making bare bulbs look actually really good. But Toby was sounding really excited about when we got to switch to LEDs. Yeah.
Yes. Those incandescents, not only do they consume a lot of energy to put out the light, they also create a lot of heat. And they're very close to old tapestries and things of that nature. So that heat can actually cause damage to those tapestries. And Jenny can tell you a lot more about that.
I was going to talk about the light bulb.
Yes. So that's quite all right, Jenny. We all have to work together out here to make it. Thankfully, we do have LED technology that looks historic, but is much more energy efficient, does not put out the heat that the incandescents do. And so that's a lot greater for not only the impact of the environment, but also the historic fabric of the house.
Yeah. I got to say, it's fun talking to an electrician here because as a guide, one of the primary sources that we love to talk about to visitors would be Byron Hanchett, an electrician from way back in the 40s who was working here, wrote a great book about working around the castle here, told great stories. I even got to run into one of his grandsons at a local business, and he told me about his dad being set up on one of the pool tables in the billiards room while his dad would be working on projects around the castle. So put your work in that historic context if you can. You know, what's the same as 100 years ago? What's changed over 100 years?
Well, I've heard of Mr. Hanchett. Matter of fact, my partner, the stationary engineer here, Jeff, he suggested that book. I have not had a chance to read it yet.
We'll give you another month.
Yeah, well, thank you for that extension. There, just as a side note, down, I believe it's the refectory basement. I'm not sure exactly which basement it is, but it's an old kind of like a substation. It's all hand built. It's very beautiful. Would have been very dangerous back in the day because there's not a lot of safety involved. We're not using it any longer, but it is very beautiful. And you can tell the quality of craftsmanship. They cared about quality. They cared about craftsmanship and the technology of the day. Now, that's just a side note. We're not using it anymore, but it is very interesting to get to see it behind the scenes. One of the things that's interesting to me that's still the same is the power, the transmission coming from the lines down at the coast up to our substation here. We have our own substation. That is the same stuff that was around in Hearst day. Of course, the equipment at the substation is modernized to help efficiency, and the equipment breaks down, and so it had to be replaced. So that is the same. You see these light standards here. You may not be able to see them in the camera angle, but all these exterior light poles, these are all marble. Those are all hand carved, I believe. Those are all original. The globes have been replaced with newer versions. The originals, I believe, were alabaster, and we do have those preserved in one of the vaults. But these are all molded like a resin, so they are lookalikes. But we try to keep them as original as possible. And of course, when the bulbs burn out, we use new LEDs in them, so they are more energy efficient. and historic at the same time. So those are two in the same. And as Tyler was saying, I think a balance is what we try to have here between keeping the past, honoring the past, and moving forward with quality and climate resilience. Of course, we're moving to solar, we're charging our cars. I was just talking with Jeff this morning about a way to charge those batteries with our solar EV charger that we have. Maybe moving forward with that, to see what we can do to help conserve the energy that we've been doing.
So it's exciting times in that a lot of this electrification that is coming in for people all over the place, you know, more opportunities to switch from gas equipment to electrical equipment in transportation, in small engines. Right. This is something that we're jumping into with both feet, and we're making it work all over the grounds here so that we get to run our castle, right, more efficiently, more cleanly, keep it beautiful, keep it even quieter. Right? That's a win all around.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah. And I want to just throw in a historic perspective on that. We are lucky enough to work with a space built by a totally visionary architect for California, Julia Morgan. Mm-hmm. Even though she has got surrounded by beautiful old artworks all over the place, that 20th century steel reinforced concrete that she was the pioneer of, making California buildings more earthquake safe. Right. Both for her and for Mr. Hearst, who loved his old art, but his new technology for information and entertainment. We're following in good footsteps there, and I am just thrilled to get to hear more of the details from you folks. Because again, I get to sort of catch it on the fly, getting a chance to actually hear directly from you folks, talking about the things that you're passionate about that make this place work. It's always exciting, and every bit that I can try and remember and take out to the tourists who are coming and joining us, I like to share.
There's so much.
There is so much.
So
you
rich.
Never run out around here. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Now, okay. So we've talked about light bulbs and electrification. Are there things behind the walls? Are there more out of sight things?
There are. We have ventilation systems here. There's ventilation systems in the Roman pool that just kind of keep the air moving. Those old motors and the operating equipment, they wear out. And so when they do, we're able to upgrade those to more energy efficient motors and sensors. We have photo cells on a lot of the lighting, especially on the perimeter. So they're not left on all day. They come on at night when we need them, and then they're off when there's plenty of sunlight. The inside, I honestly haven't been inside a whole lot. That's a collection does a lot of that work in there. But Mr. Hearst had resistive heaters installed in the walls, and so a lot of the historical fabric, I understand, is very climate sensitive, and so those heaters were actually very efficient for what they are. And so we make sure that the infrastructure, the breakers and things of that nature are energy efficient and the best technology to keep that energy regulated so that it's not wasting any energy as we heat and cool the castle. We do have, they had a couple of boilers installed. We do have a new boiler, more energy efficient, that also helps heat the castle because it does get quite cold.
Does indeed.
Yes.
Does indeed.
And so any fans, motors, sensors, things like that, we try to keep, we don't want to waste electricity leaving things on if it's not needed. And also when it's running, we don't want it just, usually energy is wasted as heat. So we don't want to overheat the systems and things like that. So we use more modern, lighter materials. And there's a number of things that we try to do to keep this thing running as efficiently as possible, using less energy, so therefore less carbon emissions.
Yeah. You're speaking into controlling the interior climate of the house, mm-hmm. And as you noted, that does affect the health of these artworks, these tapestries, the paintings. I think that may be where we're queuing to bring you on.
Oh,
Because,
good transition.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Yes. So,
Hi, everyone.
yeah. So if you can just give a thumbnail for our viewers about what does conservation collections do, and how do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I'm Jenny. I'm a museum curator one here at Hearst Castle. I love lists, so I wrote everything out on a list. So pardon me for reading off of my list here. But so for the collections department, basically we care for the museum collections here at Hearst Castle. And that's on the behalf of the public, because this is, a public institution.
That's you.
And we maintain the collection for current generations and future generations too. And to provide for the education and enrichment for our visitors. So there's about 11 of us on staff, and we work 7 days a week because the museum collections is over 22,000 objects here at Hearst Castle. That's everything from artwork to furnishings, tapestries, decorative objects, books. We have 2 libraries. All of this material was acquired by Mr. Hearst and came up here to the castle between the 20s and the late 40s. And
I could interject. The age range on that collection, I know that we are very nearby one of the oldest objects on this hilltop, over 3,000 years old Egyptian statuary.
yes.
Your department is working from that all the way up to,
we have some Art Deco furnishings from the 30s, I believe. I wonder, that's a good question. What's our newest object that we care for?
Yeah. But an amazing range of skills to take care of. As you said, fabrics, books,
paintings, paper, stone, alabaster.
And each kind of material needing its own techniques to care for it, so that we still get to have, we can all enjoy it. We can have people coming and enjoying it 100 years from now.
Exactly. And the museum collections are not just in the Casa Grande. They're in the cottages. We have objects down in the visitor center, down at the bottom of the hill. We have collections in storage, and and then on the grounds as well. So not only is it a variety of materials, types of materials, wood, paint, stone, paper, but a variety of locations as well. But one of the sort of commonalities is that, as Tyler was saying, we work pretty hard to maintain the climate within the interior, because there's no central HVAC system.
Mm-hmm.
Travis was talking about ventilation, but we don't have an AC, like an air conditioning unit, or humidity control. So we do all of that manually with machines that are in each room.
So, and again, for the benefit of our viewers, that is a little bit about the historic nature of this structure, that air conditioning was practically non-existent in the 1920s when Mr. Hearst was planning on this, when he was having Julia Morgan do the building. So there were things that he could not plan and build in because the technology didn't exist. So I guess that gets to a little bit about how you work with that, and how you, again, what are the practices that are different from Mr. Hearst's day? How we managed to improve on 100 years ago.
Yeah, so that similarity of not having AC, climate control, humidity control, it's the same today as it was 100 years ago. But we've kind of come to the realization that the artwork itself has acclimatized to those conditions pretty well. The state of the collection is pretty excellent, I would say. But some of the differences, so what what we have done as a collections department is per room install a dehumidifier and a humidifier, because we don't want the rooms get too dry or too humid. And we have fans and heaters to regulate the temperature as well. And then that's equipment that we monitor every day. You don't, here at Hearst Castle, maybe in the visitor center, but not on the hilltop. If you sort of envision, you know, going to the wall and turning a dial and setting the temperature, no, we don't have any of that here. But let's see, some of the, you know, there's a lot of differences though, if we want to talk about what we're doing now. I mean, certainly they were caring for the collection 100 years ago, definitely. Yeah. But now we have our fully trained staff here dedicated to caring for the collection. We clean the artwork and the exhibition spaces every day to try to maintain, you know, low levels of dust and debris, which can be really damaging for the artwork as well. So some of the things that we're doing specifically for energy savings is we have high efficiency washers and dryers, because we use reusable towels to do all of our cleaning, and so then we have to wash our towels. And so we have these great washing machines that are trying to not use too much water. All of our cleaning products are biodegradable, non-toxic cleaning products, particularly because, you know, we want staff to be safe, but also we want the artwork to be safe as well, and the environment as well. You know, our dehumidifiers, we're cycling in new dehumidifiers per room, so those are much more energy efficient than the older ones.
Fantastic.
Let's see. You know, but that back to some of the similarities, you know, Hearst was dealing with this issue of being in a remote location that we still deal with today.
Yes.
And we're on this hilltop, which makes it so great, but it's also, we deal with a lot of extremes in temperature here, from the extreme summertime heat to the extreme wintertime weather that we've been dealing with. And that may be a direct result of climate change, that we're dealing with these more extreme environments. And so to combat the high heat, we have protocols in place for opening up the windows, you know, which is not something that a normal museum would do, I think, but just to get some airflow into the spaces, primarily, you know, so that the visitors can be a little more comfortable as well. But we monitor the temperature hourly to make sure that we can make those decisions when it's a high heat day. But for the extreme weather, like we just had some pretty major storms this last winter. So we have to, on a regular hourly basis, monitor for water intrusion into the castle. And we basically lock and close and tie down all of the windows to prevent them from blowing up. Then. So there are a few extreme weather related issues that, you know, Hearst maybe wasn't doing. I mean, maybe was, I don't know, but we're definitely dealing with it more now.
Well, and as a state park, we use this site and these structures and this collection much more intensively than Mr. Hearst did.
Yeah.
He would be a part-time resident, maybe 6 months of the year. We have tours and visitors coming around pretty much every day of the year.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. I had written down that there are more visitors here. That's a big change from first time, which more visitors also means more people per room, and that can affect the climate in the individual rooms as well. When you have 15 in one small space. Not that they're that small, actually.
Well, some of them, but yes. So simply 20 people breathing in a room that would normally have had in Mr. Hearst's day 2 people in it at the most. Yeah. So again, as the least technical person in this crew here, And I basically have all of these nice folks be my boss in their areas of expertise. So when it comes to ventilation, if Jenny says the window is open, it's open. If it's closed, it's closed. And it's not my job to touch that window.
Yeah.
But as visitors, you will hear us talk about what your job as a visitor is to help us, to help these nice folks to take care of that collection. And that can be the simple things of walking on the tour carpet, because when we've had over 50 million people with their 100 million feet coming through this house, that's a bit more than Mr. Hearst was building for, but we're able to do that and accommodate it because we have this team of folks who are constantly looking at what needs to happen to take care of the place. And your cooperation as visitors really helps us out too.
Yeah. I mean, if you can imagine, if maybe one person touching that one spot on the tapestry isn't such a big deal, but if it's 100 people a day, then over the years, there's going to be a little bare spot on that tapestry. We don't want that. We do have, conservation contract staff that can do those repairs, but
we'd rather not make the repairs. Let's not break it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There were a couple. I think I was going to talk about this light bulb replacement.
Yeah,
project.
yeah. Tell us more on that.
That's
from the perspective of how it affects the objects.
Yeah, and the energy efficiency too. That project started in 2016, and it was to replace over 2,000 incandescent bulbs in the interior spaces with LEDs. And they really are very well matched. You can't tell, the quality of the light is tuned in, so it's not too cool, it's not too bright, and then the heat, it's not too hot. And then the design for the exposed bulbs is very similar to the incandescent designs. And so it's a huge energy savings. And it's also a big time savings, because with so many light bulbs, there would be a light bulb burnt out every day that needed to be replaced. And so it saves down on staff time to work on this.
And we would love to have a staff of hundreds, but even Mr. Hearst couldn't have that many. Yeah. And certainly getting up to that high assembly room ceiling. How high is that again? About 40, 50 feet?
I would say 50 feet to the ceiling of the assembly room.
Yeah.
That's up there.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Now we have a scissor lift, but back in the day, we've wondered that, how did they get everything done back in the day, but they did a great job.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other project I just wanted to mention about water savings was that the Neptune pool went through a huge renovation.
Yes.
About 5 years ago. And that was one of the main goals of that was, to prevent it from leaking water, and because water is such a precious resource.
Yeah. And
it wasn't like anyone did anything wrong. It was just the way it was constructed at the time had certain techniques that over the years were leading to leaks. Yep. And so
again, repaired. Julia Morgan was cutting edge in her day, but that was 100 years ago.
Yeah. And that pool itself got redesigned 3 times and expanded. Yep. So just wanted to point that out.
That resource. By the time we did that big repair on the pool, we were talking about a water loss of thousands of gallons per day. Yeah. So I occasionally get folks who come on a tour who said, "Oh, I was here 5 years ago and there was no water in the pool." So it always feels exciting to get to show them, "Hey, look, here it is, fixed up and beautiful again, and better than before." Yeah. Thank you so much.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Thank all of you. Here, come on up, and so we can have a little. So again, this is a little representation of a big force of people who are out here taking care of this state property. Since 1958, the Hearst Corporation has handed over to the state this whole house, this ground, 127 acres. Also, that includes the 3 guest cottages that are around us, that big, beautiful Casa Grande, and all of the gardens and all of the views that Mr. Hearst really wanted to emphasize with this place. It takes a lot to take care of it. Again, it was for the 1920s and 30s, a real step of taking some of the best art and craftsmanship of hundreds of years, thousands of years to put on display, but with really top level technology that they had at the time. And lucky us, we've got the benefit of 100 years of learning new techniques, learning new ways that we can do the work so that we take better care of the art, the environment, ourselves and you as visitors, because we want to still be here for you 100 years from now. And we want all of what California's got for its state parks, because we are not just museums. We are down there by that ocean that's in front of us, state beaches, elephant seal rookeries, all throughout the state of California, 280 sites where we're preserving special things that we want you to take care, to get out there and enjoy. All right. I think we are at the point where I'm going to thank all of you folks out there in video land for coming. And I want to thank my teammates. I'm giving you folks a round of applause. I do this sometimes with when I have visitors coming around, because I am always so impressed by all of the work that is happening that makes all of this possible. So thank you all for taking some time, because it's great to actually get it straight from you, all of the things that are going to make it happen.
Park Suite, climate change, it's exciting stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, it's important to talk about too.
Yes. Thank you, Dan. And the guys they're all so informative, and every chance I get, I listen in on a tour, and I get one little extra bit of information. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you. You never stop learning things up here. You never can. You can't go a day without learning something up here. And come around and keep learning things with us, because we'd love to have you here. All right. Again, on behalf of California State Parks, thank you all so much for spending this time with us. And we're hoping to see you out here live. Also, keep checking that Ports website for all of the virtual Portscasts that are happening all throughout Parks Week. And we've got a lot of special programs, not just from here at Hearst Castle, but from all over the California State Park system. You folks have a wonderful day.